Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are cracking open the business of books.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking a deep dive into the world of publishing, which, is often seen as purely creative, finding great stories and all that.
Right. The romantic view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's actually completely reliant on some pretty complex legal and financial stuff.
It really is. And it's an interesting tension because if you look at a major publisher's balance sheet, well, that tells the real story.
Not the books on the shelves?
Not primarily, no. Their most valuable assets aren't the physical inventory, the paperbacks in the warehouse. It's not even the printing presses anymore for many.
So what is it then?
It's the intellectual property rights they own or control. That's the gold.
Contracts, basically.
Contracts, yes.
Yeah.
And the backlist titles they hold rights to and all the potential money streams from sub-licensing those works down the line.
So their biggest asset isn't a physical book. It's a piece of paper, a contract saying, we control these rights.
Okay, let's try and ground this.
Good idea. We can use a specific example. Let's look at the upcoming novel, My Friends, by Frederick Backman. He's huge, globally recognized.
It's a perfect case study, bestseller potential written all over it.
And the story sounds compelling. 4 lost teenagers find refuge. They create this transcendent work of art. Then 25 years later, someone finds the painting. It's rich stuff.
Definitely.
But for that richness to actually, have economic value in the real world across borders, we need to start with a law that protects it.
Precisely. And that foundation is the whole concept of intellectual property, or IP.
Creations of the mind.
Creations of the mind, exactly.
Yeah.
It could be a story, a song, an invention, a formula. But for publishing, the absolute bedrock, the most significant IP right is copyright.
Okay, and here's the bit that often trips people up, I think. The crucial legal point.
Yes.
Copyright protects the form of expression of ideas, not the ideas themselves. Is that right?
That's absolutely spot on. So the general idea of 4 lost souls create art, that concept, it's free. Anyone can write a story about that.
What, the Backman specific novel?
But the specific written down, edited chapter-by-chapter novel telling that story with those characters, that dialogue, that is the protected expression.
And that line idea versus expression, it gets tested in court all the time, doesn't it?
Constantly. Especially when there's serious money involved. The boundaries can seem clear, but then they blur.
Can you give us a good example? Maybe one where the distinction held up?
Sure. Probably the most famous one is the Da Vinci Code case.
Oh, right. I remember that.
The claim was that Dan Brown had basically copied the hypothesis about the Holy Grail bloodline from another book.
The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, wasn't it?
That's the one. The plaintiffs pointed to, I think, 6 specific quasi-historical facts they'd used to build their theory.
Okay.
But the court said, look, Brown used those facts and conjectures which are treated as ideas, and ideas aren't protectable. He didn't copy the specific literary expression of the hypothesis from the original book.
So the way they wrote about it was different enough. Ideas are free.
Ideas are free, expression costs. And there's a flip side, too, an older case, a Nichols v. Universal Pictures.
What did that show?
It involved 2 plays from the early 20th century. The court basically said that characters need to be well developed to get strong copyright protection. If your characters are just, stock types, too indistinct, too generic, they get less protection. The court literally said authors risk losing protection by marking their work too indistinctly. You have to put the effort in.
So the law rewards originality and detail in the expression.
Exactly. And once you have that original, distinct expression, copyright gives the author this powerful, well, you called it a bundle of exclusive rights.
Right. You're not just protecting the pages, but the whole package of how it can be used commercially.
Precisely. It's the legal right to exploit the work financially.
So after getting that protection, what's actually in that bundle? What specific rights does the author hold and then license to the publisher?
Okay, the main ones are the exclusive right to reproduce the work, make copies.
Print runs, ebooks.
Yep. Then the right to distribute those copies in any format. The right to communicate it to the public, like a reading or broadcast. The right to rent or lend copies, think libraries. And crucially, for making money beyond the first book sale, the right to translate it or adapt it into other forms.
Films, plays, TV shows.
All that. Plus, there are moral rights.
Which are?
The right of paternity, basically, the right to be named as the author. And the right of integrity, the right to object if someone messes with the work, distorts it, or mutilates it in a way that harms your reputation.
Wow. That's a lot packed into one manuscript. Which brings us to the publisher's role. How do they help manage this complex, valuable bundle?
Well, the publisher is really the engine here. They turn that legal right into economic reality.
How so?
Their main job starts with acquiring the license for those rights from the author. Then they add significant value.
Through editing, design.
High-level editing, professional design, yes, but also extensive marketing, distribution, logistics, and crucially, the ongoing management of all those subsidiary rights we just mentioned.
They make it actually sellable and sustainable.
Exactly. They take the raw, protected material and package it for the market.
And it's not just about the copyright in the text itself, right? Publishers use other IP too, like trademarks.
Absolutely. Trademarks are often overlooked, but they're vital. We might know Frederick Backman, but maybe not his specific publisher immediately.
Sure.
But the publisher's brand or the specific imprint they use, that carries weight. Trademarks protect their logos, series titles, registered names. Think of Oxford for OUP dictionaries.
Or like a For Dummies book or Teach Yourself. You recognize the series style?
Precisely. Those registered marks signal quality, reliability. That's valuable IP in itself, building consumer trust.
And what about collections? Like if Backman's story was in an anthology.
Good point. Even if Backman owns the copyright to his story, the person who compiles the anthology selects and arranges the works. They get a separate copyright in that specific compilation.
Just for choosing and ordering them.
Yes, because that selection and arrangement is itself an act of creative expression.
Interesting. So looking at the whole publishing value chain, creation, production, getting it out there.
Dissemination, yeah.
That dissemination part is changing so fast with digital. We looked at some library search results, like from the Minuteman Library Network. And you see publishers managing ebooks, audiobooks, even creating digital collections like Read Before You Watch.
Exactly. The delivery method is totally different, digitized, instant. But the publisher is still the one controlling the rights, the commodity being exchanged.
Which brings us smack into the core document, the contract between author and publisher. This sets up the whole financial deal.
It's everything. The author grants a license, usually exclusive for the main rights for reproduction and distribution. Sometimes, especially in nonfiction or work for hire, they might assign the copyright outright to the publisher.
Okay, and that contract dictates how the author gets paid. What are the main ways?
2 core models. First is fee-based or work for hire. Simple. The author gets a one-off payment, and that's it. Doesn't matter how many copies sell.
Where do you see that most often?
Contributions to encyclopedias, maybe some children's nonfiction, specific commission pieces. We saw an example. A 6,000-word nonfiction book for 12-year-olds might get a flat fee of, say, $2,500.
And from the publisher's perspective, that fixed fee is great for cost control, right?
Huge advantage. You pay that fee once. Every single copy you sell after that first print run, especially on reprints, has a much higher gross margin because the content cost is already sunk.
Almost pure profit on the content side after that initial payment.
Pretty much. But for a major novelist like Backman, that's not the model. They'll be on a royalty payment.
A percentage of sales.
Right, a percentage. The benchmark often thrown around is 10%. But the really crucial detail, what you listening need to understand, is 10% of what?
Is it 10% of the cover price, the retail price? Or 10% of what the publisher actually receives?
Exactly. The publisher's net receipts. And the difference can be massive.
Explain that. Let's use an example. Book costs $20.
Okay. If the author gets 10% of the retail price, $20, they earn $2 per copy sold. Simple enough. Right. But what if the publisher sells that $20 book to a big bookstore chain with a huge 50% discount?
So the publisher only gets $10.
Right. That $10 is their net receipt. Now, if the author's contract says they get 10% of net receipt,
they only get $1. 10% of $10.
Wow. It literally halves the author's income per copy sold in that scenario.
That's huge. So a big name like Backman probably insists on retail price royalty.
Almost certainly. They have the leverage. But a debut author or a mid-list author, they might have to accept a net receipts deal, which means they're effectively subsidizing the publisher's discounts to retailers. It massively impacts their potential earnings.
Definitely something to watch in a contract.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's the advance. We hear about huge advances.
We do. But let's be clear, an advance is not an extra fee on top of royalties.
It's against future royalties, right?
Exactly. It's money paid up front on account. The author has to sell enough copies to earn that amount back in royalties, what they call earning out, before they see another penny in royalty payments.
So how do publishers decide how much to advance?
Well, the sort of rule of thumb is that the advance shouldn't really exceed about half the royalties they expect the author to earn just from the first print run selling out completely.
Keeps their risk somewhat manageable.
Right.
But
But the size of the advance isn't always just about projected book sales. It often reflects the publisher's bet on the income from the book's second life.
the subsidiary rights.
Exactly. That's where the big potential upside often lies, especially for fiction.
We saw that example of a novelist, Jackie Jones, getting a $200,000 advance for a mass market novel.
Incredible number, right?
Yeah. But wait, if she got $200,000 up front, she has to earn that back through her royalty percentage before she makes more. That's a ton of books.
It is, which puts immense pressure and incentive on the publisher to make that book work, not just in domestic print, but everywhere else too. They need to exploit those subrights effectively to justify that big bet.
Okay, so that leads us perfectly into subsidiary rights. This is where the real value can multiply, you're saying.
It's often the difference between a modest success and a global phenomenon. It's exploiting that bundle of rights we talked about beyond just selling the initial book.
So what falls under subrights? Give us the list.
Okay, you've got translation rights, selling the book in other languages, serialization, that's printing extracts in newspapers or magazines.
Before or after publication?
Both. There's first serial rights, usually pre-publication, great for publicity buzz,
Sure.
and second serial rights after the book is out.
Got it. What else?
Dramatization stage plays, film and TV options and rights, huge potential there. And increasingly, merchandising, using characters, quotes, artwork on t-shirts, mugs, you name it.
And how is the income from these rights typically split between the author and publisher?
It varies wildly. For some standard academic or educational rights, maybe a 50-50 split is common. The publisher did the work to sell it.
Okay.
But for the really valuable stuff like film rights or first serial for a big book, a high-profile author with clout, like that Jackie Jones example again, might negotiate to keep 75%, 80%, even 90% of that income.
Wow, 90%.
Yeah, the example cited was she got 90% of the first serial rights income. The split really reflects who holds the power and who is doing the work to make that specific deal happen.
And managing these, especially foreign rights, sounds complex. How do they handle, say, printing in multiple languages?
It's actually quite clever financially. Often the original publisher sells the translation rights to a foreign publisher, but might manage the actual printing for several languages together.
Why would they do that?
Economies of scale. We saw a case study. Imagine needing print runs in Spanish, German, and the original English. If each publisher prints separately, say 500 copies each, it's expensive per unit.
Right.
But if the originating publisher coordinates and prints all 1,500 or maybe 2,500 copies together in one go, the unit cost plummets.
So they share the setup costs. Makes sense. Lower costs for everyone involved.
Exactly. The example showed a combined run hitting a unit cost of just $2. Everyone wins.
Smart. But before any of this money can flow, there's a huge hurdle. Permissions. Using stuff that isn't yours.
Oh, absolutely. Third-party material. This is a massive, often tedious part of publishing. Getting permission for text excerpts, you quote, illustrations, photos, even web content you might reproduce.
Unless it's covered by fair use or fair dealing.
Right, those are legal exceptions, but the criteria are quite specific and often debated. For anything substantial, you need explicit permission.
And getting permission isn't just a quick email, is it?
No way. It means identifying the actual rights holder, which can be tricky, negotiating a fee, specifying exactly how and where you'll use it, and agreeing on the exact wording for the acknowledgement. They can be very strict.
And if they say no or you can't find them?
You can't use it, period.
Yeah.
Or you risk infringement. It's a serious bottleneck sometimes.
Okay, shifting to the current landscape. The constant threat seems to be infringement. Piracy, counterfeiting?
Yes, it's a huge drain on resources and potential profit.
Yeah.
Illegal digital copies, counterfeit physical books, it's a constant battle.
So what are the countermeasures? Especially for things like photocopying in schools, which used to be rampant.
That's where organizations like RRO's reproduction rights organizations come in. They've become really important.
How do they work?
They act as a central clearinghouse. They negotiate licenses with major users like educational institutions or governments, allowing them to legally copy limited extracts. Then they collect fees for that copying.
And distribute it back to the publishers and authors.
Exactly. It's a collective administration system. It tries to balance the user's need for access with the creator's right to be paid for their work. It makes mass licensing feasible.
There's an economic argument I find interesting here, almost a paradox.
Which is,
People sometimes justify illegal copying by saying original books are too expensive.
you hear that a lot, yeah.
But that very piracy erodes the market for the legal publisher, which forces them to maybe do smaller print runs next time because they anticipate lower sales.
And smaller print runs mean higher unit costs due to economies of scale.
Exactly. So the piracy itself might actually contribute to making legal books more expensive. It's a vicious cycle.
That's a very real dynamic. And the shift to digital just throws more fuel on that fire in some ways.
How so?
Speed, mainly. Traditional print publishing might take, 12 months, even 24 months from manuscript to bookstore.
Right.
An ebook can be produced and distributed in weeks, maybe a couple of months. That speed makes managing rights much more complex.
Which is where things like DRM come in, digital rights management.
Precisely. DRM is the technology the digital locks publishers use to try and control how and where digital content is used, copied, or shared. It's their tool for managing IP in this super fluid digital market.
And that control extends to new models like print on demand or POD.
Yes, POD allows books to be printed individually only when ordered. DRM and digital files make that model efficient, but again, controlling the source file is key.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this mean for you, the listener, the reader? That novel we started with, my friends, it's the story, the emotion that grabs us.
That's the creative currency.
But its actual business value, its ability to exist and travel globally, is built entirely on this framework of intellectual property law.
Absolutely. The contract sets the financial stage, managing risk and reward, and the clever exploitation of subsidiary rights is what often turns a good book into a lasting commercial success.
It's a whole ecosystem.
It really is. Book publishing is vital, culturally important, but it relies on this regulatory framework being respected, on efficient distribution, and ultimately on society valuing the intellectual work of creators enough to protect it. Without that, the whole thing becomes less viable.
Fascinating stuff. So we've established that intellectual property, legally, only gets protection once it's given material expression written down, painted, recorded.
Right. The idea isn't enough.
Which leaves us with a final, maybe provocative thought for you to ponder. If protection only kicks in once the work exists in a tangible form, what responsibility, if any, does society have to protect a creator before that point, when their work is still just a vulnerable idea taking shape in their mind?